Hey everybody, I am going to show you how to crimp JST, DuPont, and another form of JST connector, which is the JST-SM. So let's get started here. The two tools you're going to need. Now the first one is probably the reason why you found this video. This is the SN28B made by IWISS. I like their crimpers. They're great quality. They're relatively cheap. This one, when I got it a few years ago, was I think I paid like 30 bucks for it. This other one here, it was under 25. Um, you can't use one crimper for all of these. They will say that you can in the marketing, like they'll give you a list of on like you can get these on Amazon. I'm not going to post links, affiliate links or anything like that. People are smart enough; they can figure out how to find this stuff on their own. Um, I'll give you the names and serial numbers, but I'm not going through the hassle of posting all that just so I can get some commission on it. Um, if that's what you do and that's how you make extra money, that's fine. But I I'm not going to do that. Um, the the list that it'll have like on Amazon or on eBay, it'll tell you that it'll support this all these different types of connectors, like Pico blade and on just this crimper, and that is not true at all. I mean, it will crimp it, but it'll also destroy the connector while it's at it. Anyway, so for the JST, the XHP connectors, you can find these kits on Amazon for like $5 a piece, and they of course always include not enough of the connectors that you normally use, like the 2 and 3 pin, and they of course include plenty of the ones that you're not going to use. Anyway, the connector or the crimper that you're going to want to use for those is the IWISS. Let me see what the 322M. This one, if you can tell, if you can see here, the difference is the jaws on this one are like double the thickness. So for the small white connectors, these are the ones that you see on boards with stuff plugged into them. They're great for quick connects, like stuff you're not going to take off the board too often, like unplug, but stuff that you can unplug, like if you need to take something apart. Anyway, the little part, the connector itself, the part that you crimp, is tiny. If you put it in the SN28B, you will be able to crimp it, but it will crush this box. And this is what actually plugs into the male receptacle on the board. It'll crush this box, and either it'll break the minute you go to insert it, and then it'll roll up inside of the connector, and you won't be able to get it to stay on, or you'll put it on, and once you pull it out, you'll have this little metal tab break off, and it will not stay connected anymore. You will be lucky if it even makes a electrical connection at that point. Anyway, so there are two different tools for the job. Don't, first of all, like I've heard people in videos say, oh, for these ones, just use a pair of needle nose, but don't do that. That is not what these are meant for. They're not going to survive. The minute that there's any bit of tugging on that board, it is going to rip the jacket of the wire, and the wire is going to come out, or it is not going to fit inside of the housing, the actual housing part. It's not going to fit right, or all of it's going to happen and you're just going to give up, and you're going to end up buying ones that have the wires already that you're going to solder to, that you're going to strip back, and you're going to splice them together. There's nothing wrong with doing that if you're on a time constraint and you've never done this before. I don't blame you for wanting to go with the quicker route, the easier route. I just personally like making my own wiring harnesses that don't have heat shrink tube and globs of solder in the middle of them. Anyway, so let's get started here. The first thing you're going to do is you are going to, depending on which one, we'll get started with the hardest one first. The hardest one is definitely the JST-XHP, and it's because of how tiny it is. And there's a tool that you're going to use to help you with that. There's actually one of two tools you can use. You can, hope if I can pick them up. You can get these. You can find these at Harbor Freight. You can also find larger versions at fishing stores. for like removing hooks, or you can order them online. I paid $3 for these at Harbor Freight. I've had them for a long time now. They are going to be in the section that has all the weird shit in it, that like the wheelchairs and the scissors and the household stuff, I guess you could call it. But these are nice because once you clamp onto something, you can, and they're locking. They're called hemostats if you're in the medical field, locking pliers if you are in the Harbor Freight world, or the generic Amazon description route, whatever one you want to take. These are also useful for when you're soldering stuff to boards, because if your leads are long enough, you can actually clip them on the back and rest them against something, and it'll hold the component in place while you solder one of the leads. Like, it's especially useful for putting the female or the male receptacle on there. You clip one lead on, and then you solder the other, and then you can actually adjust it once you get it soldered in. Just put some heat on the connector. Be careful that these connectors do melt very easily, so just be aware of that. Anyway, the wire I'm using is 24 AWG gauge, whatever you want to call it. This is the manufacturer that I use. I use silicone coated wire. Do not go larger than 24 if you're going to be going with silicone wire, because it will not fit easily inside of the connector, especially the DuPont connectors. And when you go to push the wire in, it's just gonna to kind of coil up a little bit, and you're not going to get it in. And then if you're going to have to try to pull it through some other way, and you're going to end up breaking the connector anyway. Go with the smaller side. Go with 24 AWG. It's going to be fine if you're doing, because these are supposed to be used for low voltage applications anyway. So it's fine. It'll be okay. What's nice about this manufacturer, though, and no, I'm not getting paid by anybody to sponsor products, because again, I'm not throwing affiliate links in. People are smart. They can research and buy this on their own. What's nice about these is they come, there's 30 feet of each color, and it includes these little Velcro straps that wrap around so that nothing uncoils, and very well organized. The wire solders very well to different things. It's very easy to work with, and the silicone jacketing holds up. Like the cheap shit that you'll buy, when you go to solder it, you don't even have to be near the jacket. Like, if you strip back enough of it, and it'll burn away. Go with the silicone wire. A lot of people who do drone work, they use this stuff. Anyway, so the hardest part of doing this is dealing with the small size of it. We're going to start with the XHP connector, and we're going to start with the hardest first. So the first thing you need to do, you're going to grab your wire. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see. I will zoom in even more when it gets time to actually crimp it. But what you're going to do, actually, let's bring it a little bit closer. When you strip this wire, what you want to do is, I'm not going to show you how to use a pair of wire strippers. You can figure it out. But you're only going to take off just a tiny little bit. Because the reason is that when you insert it into this connector, you do not want it going past those tabs and into the actual connector. If you have it going past those tabs, every time you plug this into the board or into the receptacle, whatever you want to call it, every time you do that, it is going to be pushing these wires, and it's gonna crumple them up and do a little ball. And I could actually take off just a little bit more. Do not strip away a crap load of jacketing, because again, you do not want these wires having that pin being pushed into them all the time, because all that's going to do is it's going to work the connector loose too. So for these ones, now let me start with this. Every manufacturer of these, I would assume that these go into some kind of machine, and when they're made on a massive scale, they have these little tabs on the back. For every other connector but these ones that go into these JST-XHP ones, you're going to want to break that tab off, because every guide you find online, and I've I've seen some videos, some people try to explain it to do it like that, and it never really works out the way it's supposed to. But every guide you find online is going to tell you to use this tab to help guide it in, which you can use to help guide it in, but after that you still got to push it in further, because these little tabs need to go against the jaw down here. You pull that all the way through, so the connector, which I'm not going to break the tab off because these ones you actually can use it to help you, but these little tabs, you're going to have it like this, where the actual connector is facing outward, and you are going to pull this through until these little tabs here stop at the lip, and pretty much you can't pull any further. So what I'm going to do is, and a lot of these you do have to, depending on if you're me and you store everything in bins and the tabs end up bending outward a little bit more, you're going to want to just squeeze them a little bit. You don't want to squeeze them to where they're touching, but you squeeze them in a little bit more so that when you load them in the crimper, that one I did it too much, but you don't want them too wide. Like, you don't want to have to fight to get it in the crimper. So then what you're going to do is, and this is where I said you could use the tab to help you out with this. Then what you're going to do is you're going to push it as far back as you can. Now this is one of the cases where, like I said, you can use the tab because the jaws aren't too big. So what I'm going to do, now that it's rested all the way back against that little lip, I'm going to squeeze it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to break off that little, well, actually no, we're going to squeeze it a couple clicks to start bending it. You don't want to actually completely lock it in because you want to be able to have it grab the wire and hold it and then load it back in. Some people will will load the wire, like they'll pre-crimp it and then they'll start to load the wire in while it's in the crimper. I find this to be a lot more difficult than it needs to be. So what I do is I like to put the wire in after you've closed it down a little bit. And my best advice is twist the wires together a little bit, like twist them as if you were going to splice them with something. And I may have actually crimped this down a little too far. That's all right. All right. So you see how the jacket doesn't go under the other tabs, which it's actually too crimped down now to go under the tabs, but the wires I insert, when I inserted it, the wires are all under the two tabs that have started to fold over, because the way these crimpers work is the very bottom set of jaws, the one that you're pushing the big tabs up to, those crimp to the wire, and then the top ones are what fold over the strands of the wire. So like the first set of tabs on here, those crimp to the jacket of the wire, and then the actual little tabs there, they crimp to the small parts of the wire. So now that we have it loaded in, we are ready to finalize this crimp. So again, we're going to push it all the way back until you hit the edge of the lip with your little tabs. It'll stop, and then what you're going to do is you're going to finalize that crimp. And if you have done it right, and it does take practice, you will see locked around the jacket. Sometimes it will if you crimp too hard. There's like a little wheel you can adjust on these. I just leave it as what the factory has it. But you will notice that the wires are crimped down and the jacket is crimped. It is not going to come apart. And when you load it into the connector, there's that little tab here on the bottom. That'll go where the tab goes on the connector. So then what you're going to do is you're going to insert it, and be gentle. You don't want to force anything, and it'll click into place. And it'll have a little tiny bit of wiggle, but you're going to see that little tab catches it and keeps it from coming out. And that's how you make one of those. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to do everyone's favorite, and this is probably why you're here, DuPont connectors. That's these little black ones. You'll see they are used for jumper wires. They're used for like power supplies for plugging into breadboards. Real big in Arduino. I'm going to show you how to make the male one because that is a lot easier to show than making the female one. Same rules apply for all of these. All these, you're going to notice, have the two tabs and then the tabs in the middle that lock around the stripped wire. The first two tabs around the jacketing. All of them follow the same principle. So what we're going to do is we're not going to use the tab on this one because when you're using the SN28B, if you use that to guide you, you will not insert it far enough. So we're going to grab our wire again, and we're going to strip it back, and we're only going to strip it back a little bit. And I'm sorry if I keep bumping the tripod. So we only need just a little bit. That's all you need, just a little bit. And you can always compare it to the actual connector. And you'll see that there's enough jacket to grab onto, and the wires don't go past those tabs. Alright, so we're going to get this crimper out of here, and we're going to bring in the big boy. This is the one that everybody has trouble with. And mind you, when you do this with the IWISS one, it's going to be upside down. So you see the lip there? We're going to start again with this one's a little bit different because you only use the one size on the other one. Like the Pico blade connectors are tiny, and you'll be able to use that for like the smaller ones, but the JST-XHP connectors, those use the maximum size on that. This one, we're going to start with the biggest jaw first, and we're going to do exactly the same thing that we did with the other one. And what's nice about the DuPont ones, the male ones at least, is that you have a little handle to hold on to, the pin. What you're going to do is you're going to insert it like we did with the other one. You're going to pull it back as far as it'll go to where it catches that lip. And then what you're going to do, give it like 2 clicks. There's a little tab back here that you're going to push to release. And now you can already see it has started to crimp it around. And this is when you're going to slide your wire in like that. And the reason that I don't like loading the wire while it's in the crimper, because I can't see how far up it's inserted. And I can't see that the wire is laying within, I can't see that the wire is laying within the tabs. You want that wire laying in between those tabs, not on top of it, not outside of it. You want it right in the middle of it. All right, so now you're going to grab it, and same orientation that you had it before. You are going to insert it and you'll feel the lips catch, like the little tabs, you'll feel them catch. you can actually ratchet it down a little bit to where you can slide it in and you'll feel it catch easier. And then you crimp it. And if you did it right, and you may have to do it a couple times if you didn't get it inserted far enough, because it just won't crimp it at all. Oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. Actually, after you crimp it after you load the wire, what you want to do, my mistake, I apologize, you want to go with the smallest one. That is the one you need. That would explain why I was having trouble getting it to go. So you move to the smallest one when you finalize the crimp. Once again, you're going to push it until you catch that lip, and then you're going to crimp it on the smallest one. Sorry about that. And once you've done it right, and it looks all crappy now because I've crimped it like 600 times, but that doesn't matter, it'll be fine. But you'll see it'll be locked around the jacket, and the two tabs in the center will be crushed over the wires that you have in there. So now what we're going to do is we are going to insert it into the connector. Now what you're going to do when you insert it into these is, see this little plastic tab here? That locks down in that little channel in between where the wires connect. There's a little groove there. All you're going to do is you're going to insert it. Just double checking my orientation here, because it will only fit one way. And you are going to insert it. And actually, I have to squeeze these tabs in, and you probably will have to do this because the silicone wire, the problem with it is the jacket's really thick. If it's too thick, if it doesn't go easy, do not pull this through. Just squeeze the side of the tabs a little bit. And then make sure that you're facing where that little box is, where that little tab's going to lock in. And then you push it and you will hear it click. Give it a couple tugs. Just make sure it doesn't come out. And that is how you make a DuPont connector. And the same rules apply for the female side. Female side, take your time with, because it's kind of hard to hold on to that little connector because you don't have this pin to hold on to. But that's how you do that. There's not a lot to this. There's not as much as people think. The problem is nobody shows people how to actually use the crimper. So, all right, now the last one we're going to do, and these ones are by far the easiest. These are the JST-SM connectors, and there's a female equivalent to this too that plugs in. We're just going to do the male one for the sake of time here. So once again, sorry, I just fucked up the lighting. Anyway, same thing goes with this as with the other ones. And these ones you can use, the only ones that I actually use that use the 3220M crimper are the XHP, the tiny ones, the ones that go in the little white connector. So what we're going to do is we are going to break the tab off. Get rid of that. And then this one is another one where you want to squeeze the tabs in a little bit so it fits in the crimper easier. And the same rules are going to apply. These are virtually the same as the DuPont connectors in terms of instruction. So we're going to, let me bring you in closer here. You're going to insert it, pull it all the way back, till and it's not going to take a lot, all the way back until it catches that lip. Reposition my hand here so I can crimp easier. Alright, and then 1, 2. That's all you need. Here, press your little tab, release, and sometimes it'll get stuck to the top of or the bottom. It'll get stuck in there. And again, same thing. You are just going to strip off just a tiny little bit of your wire. Twist it up so that it stays all nice and uniform. And then you're going to slide your connector or your wire in, and my wires came unraveled there. Okay, and then grab your crimper, and you're going to go to the smallest setting again, and you're going to go up to where the tabs catch that bottom jaw lip, and then you're going to squeeze, and then you're going to look. As you see, the jack is held and the wires are crimped. And then with these, the thing with these ones is the tab is, you can see it there, the tab is on top of the connector. So what you're going to do is you're going to look, and you see on this one how there's a little cutout for where that tab's going to go. And all you do is you slide it in. And again, we're going to squeeze the sides, because sometimes when you, well, 99% of the time when you crimp these, it's going to blow out the side of the connector a little bit, or blow out the little side tabs a little bit too wide. So all you're going to do is just gently squeeze it closer together. Make sure your tab's facing the same way as the housing, where the tab's going to go in the housing. And you're going to feed it in. And the problem with silicone wire, you may have just heard the little click there, but same thing. There's always going to be a little wiggle to these connectors, and that's good. That means that if you can wiggle it and it doesn't pull out, and you can hear those tabs hitting, it's fine. But the problem with the silicone wire is it is kind of difficult compared to like the PVC shit that they wrap the cheap wire in. The stuff that when you saw it, when you even look at it the wrong way, the jacketing burns off of it. The problem with the silicone though is it is so flexible that when you're inserting it into the connectors, it's hard. Sometimes I use like a little screwdriver to help kind of guide it along. You got to be careful though, because you don't want to destroy the connector. Like you don't want to scrape up the sides or bend the little tab and break the tab off. But as you see, that's all there is to it. The stuff, it really isn't as hard as people make it seem. A lot of people will buy the crimper and they'll buy the kit, and when they get the crimper, they think that it's going to include instructions on how to use it. And now some other brands do, but again, the instructions are wrong. They're not, because they're trying to use that same set for one connector for everything. And normally these connectors all follow the same rules. You pull the little tabs, tangs, whatever you want to call them, you pull them up through the bottom jaw up to the lip, up to the second set of jaws. That's what that is, that lip. It's the start of the second set that crimps. Because the way that these work is one set, the lower set crimps the jacketing, and the upper set crimps the wires, like the strands of the wire. That way it makes good connectivity. So what I see a lot of people doing though is they follow like guides they find online where they leave that tab on, they insert it into the one side. They're not even paying attention because they think that you're going to use it like this, and you load it like this, and then if you know the right orientation for it, you can use it like this. I actually like using it like this easier because I can see, I get more leverage. I mean, I guess it depends on what hand you use most often, but I mean, the jaws are reversible, so you can use them. You can use it in whatever way you want, as long as the jaws line up. But and the other problem too, especially with these little white ones, is a lot of people think that this is a one-size-fits-all crimper. No, like if you try to crimp, I've even seen people on YouTube trying to crimp Deutsch connectors with these. No, those use a barrel crimper. That's completely different. But anything that uses the little tabs, usually you can get away with using this. DuPont connectors and the JST-SM connectors, these little black ones that you see on like drone batteries and stuff, you can use those. But otherwise, don't try to do the JST-XHP ones with this, because it's going to crush that box at the end, and the connector is not going to be any good. Buy the right tool for the job, because this one's cool. You can use it for different types of real small connectors like the Pico blades and stuff like that. It's not a one size fits all. If you are going to have both, I recommend getting both of these anyway, because it's always good to have different, like I have a butt connector crimper that Klein Tools made that follows the same profile. But yeah, get the right tool for the job, spend the extra money. Don't listen to the marketing on the Amazon ad. You're going to be disappointed, and you're going to be frustrated when you realize that you can't crimp all these things in the list that it says. There's a time and place for every tool. Just make sure you use the right one for the job, because what's weird is if you look up crimper for JST-XHP, it actually shows both of these. But whenever I was looking at the jaws on this one and how much smaller they were, like how thinner they were, like, look at that. That's literally double the size, actually more than double. So, yeah, just use the right tool for the job. If you have any questions on this, feel free to ask. If you notice anything inaccurate in here, or my explanation isn't clear enough, let me know, and I'll try to do a follow-up. If you want to know how to do any other types of connectors, just let me know, and I will see what I can do. Thanks for watching.